But it's a great sort of rollicking song as well. And the style, as you say, I'd never thought of the chain gang sort of thing, but it's absolutely spot on. It does
Yeah,
fit sort of call and response and that sort of, again, drinking hall sort of singing along type thing as well. The chain
absolutely.
gang's sort of more sort of dirty and painful, which probably suits it better.
Yeah, there you
So
go.
yeah,
Hey, everybody out there. Welcome back to another episode of the Audiophiles. I'm Andy. That's John over there. And hello, John. We are going to jump into a song, one today, that's been recommended by John to me that I'll go off and listen to, and I will return and we will discuss. John, what's in the hopper, my friend?
so ongoing project, as they say. Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds.
Oh, okay, cool, cool. I'm always up for some of that.
And it's not as structured as our previous REM Funk Jazz Odyssey. This is just scattershot approach. So this song is Papa Won't Leave You, Henry.
I won't leave you, Henry. Okay. Well, I am sure this is going to be rife with interesting exposition and all the usual trimmings that we get with a Nick Cave song. So I will prepare myself to pick up as much as I can and try to make as much sense as I can of it. But thank God you're here to fill in those blanks. So let me go off and give it a listen. I'll come back and I can fill you in, and then I'm sure you will fill me in. Twangy and thrummy acoustic guitar.
I went out walking the other day, the heat hung wet around my neck, my head had rung with screams and groans for the night I spent amongst her bones. And I passed beside the mission house.
Hold on. he has he has this penchant for fitting a lot of exposition into his songs, namely in the verses. So this is completely on brand for him. But he also has this penchant for conflating or leading the listener to conflate these feelings that appear, or these lyrics that appear in some ways sexually charged, but then there's this weird gray area where there's also like morbid descriptors and allusions that pull you away from something like sex into something like death or murder. And it's a weird, it makes for me, it makes me feel weird, because I am going from one thing to a very different thing, and never should those two cross, you know what I mean? Like, you find yourself in the throes of, the sexual activity, and you're thinking about, being in the presence of someone's bones. It's off-putting and awkward and kind of like nails on a chalkboard or rubbing you. It just gives you the ick. But it's interesting that he has the power through music and words to do that, which is something that I find actually admirable. That he can make the listener, like through a lyrical or musical Rorschach test, make the listener see and envision and feel things that they may not want to or may not like, that's in them to do that. You know what I mean? It's a little weird, but also very kind of interesting. All right, let's take this back a little bit.
I spent amongst her bones. And I passed beside the mission house where that mad old buzzard, the Reverend, shrieked and flapped about life after you're dead. Well, I thought about my friend Michelle, how they rolled him in linoleum and they shot him in the neck. A bloody halo like a think bubble circling his head. And I bellowed at the firmament, looks like the rains are here to stay.
That violin is great.
And the rain pissed down upon me and it washed me all away. Saying, Papa won't leave you, Henry. Papa won't leave you, boy. Papa won't leave you, Henry. Papa won't leave you, boy. Well, the road is long and the road is hard, and many fall by the side. But Papa won't leave you, Henry, so there ain't no need to cry.
I love that dun 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 dun. That sort of, it's like staccato-y and descending, and I just love the way that kind of punctuates the end of the lyrical stanza or whatever there. Yeah, this sounds really great. That whole scene with the Reverend the Buzzard, and then this thinking about his friend who was like executed in this like mafia style. All very interesting, all very dark and very Nick Cave like. And then there's these like sort of group vocals that come along as the chorus opens up, and it's got like chain gang feel to it, which is also really interesting, and it sounds great.
Went on down the road. Oh yeah, I went on down the road.
Yeah.
Well, the moon looked exhausted, like something you should pity. I spent an age spotted above the sizzling wires of the city, but it reminded me of her face and her bleached and hungry eyes.
Oh, listen to the piano, just it's punctuating in this portion rather than that roiling, niggling under the surface feel that it had in the first verse. Yeah, this is cool.
Her hair was like a curtain, falling open with the laughter and closing with the lies. And the ghost of her still lingers on, though she's passed through me and is gone. Well, the slumdogs, they are barking, the rain children on the streets, and the tears that we will weep today will all be washed away. By the tears that we will weep again tomorrow. Papa won't leave you, Henry. Papa won't leave you, boy. Papa won't leave you, Henry. Papa won't leave you, boy. Well, the road is long and the road is hard, and many fall by the side. Well, Papa won't leave you, Henry, so there ain't no need to cry. And I went on down the road. Oh yeah, I went on down the
Ooh. Ooh, these discordant key
and
sounds.
I came upon a little house upon a hill. And I entered through and the curtain hissed into the house with its blood-red boughs, where wet-lipped women with greasy fists crawled the ceilings and the walls. And they filled me full of drink, and they led me round the rooms, naked and cold and grinning, until everything went black and I came down spinning.
Ooh, I love this verse.
I
What they're
was
doing
so
with
drunk
music.
and full of rage that I could hardly speak. A bag and a whalebone corset draping his dick across my cheek.
Yikes.
Well, it's into the shame and it's into the guilt and it's into the fucking fray. And a wall's red around me, a warm arterial spray. Say, Papa won't leave you, Henry.
If he spent money for that night at the brothel that he just highlighted, and I were him, I would demand a refund.
Papa won't leave you, boy. Papa won't leave you, Henry. Papa won't leave you, boy. Well, the night is dark and the night is deep and his jaws are open wide. Yeah, well, Papa won't leave you, Henry, so there ain't no need to cry. And I went on down the road. Oh yeah, I went on down the road. Yeah, whoa, whoa. It's a rainy season where I'm living. Death comes leaping peeping out of every doorway, wasting you for your money, for your clothes and being nothing. Entire towns being washed away, the fellas exploding on inflammable spillways, and the lynch mob, death squads, babies being born without brains, the mad heats and the relentless rains. Well, if you stick your arm into that hole, it comes out shit up to the bone. And with the kisses of bubbling on my lips, I swiped the rain and it nearly missed. And then I went on down the road. Papa won't leave you, Henry. Papa won't leave you, boy. Papa won't leave you, Henry. Papa won't leave you, boy. Well, the road is long and the road is hard, and many fall by the side. Well, and Papa won't leave you, Henry, so there ain't no need to cry. And I went on down the road. Oh yeah, I went on down the road. Yeah, back beneath my head road. Yeah, I went on down the road. Oh, whoa, whoa. Oh, wow, wow. Yeah, whoa, whoa. Yeah, whoa, whoa. And I went on down that road.
Yeah, no, I loved that. God, so weird though. The lyrics, the narrative. You have these very interesting, like, lyrically robust verses that are at times almost too descriptive. Like, I didn't need all that information. But it's really unsettling and weird, and you don't want to listen, but you have to. It's the auditory version of watching a train wreck. Like, you don't want to see it, but you have to. I didn't want to hear the shit that he had to say, but I was hanging on every word. Yeah, that last verse sounds like he lives in the fucking one of the worst places in the world. With lynch mobs and death squads and babies being born without brains. You stick your arm in a hole and there's shit up to the bone or whatever. Like, it just sounds awful. Yeah, each one of these verses oddly sounded like they're... Like, the first one opens when he's talking about the heat and the feeling it around his neck and the vulture-like, preacher talking about what happens after you die. And then, we transition and he's talking about, like, the moon is out at this point in the next one. So it all sounds like it kind of fits together. And then all of a sudden you're in the throes of this, like, from dusk till dawn, but without the vampires, but still a similar fate, or of just, like, weird, awful shit happening to you in a brothel. And then this depiction of his town, or where he lives, and all the awful characters that you might encounter and the shit you might see on the day-to-day, and how it's wet season there, so it's always raining. I don't, look, there was a lot to catch. I didn't catch all of it. Maybe there is a more cohesive narrative. I'm sure there is. Who's Henry? I've got more questions than I have any sort of, answer or explanation there is for what I just heard. But I liked what I just heard. That's got to count for something. And there are interesting elements throughout this. There's just I think it was the third verse was very eerie in how they kind of deconstructed the music a little bit and then added these odd, unsettling sounds. There was this discordant kind of key work. And there was also, like, the violin was doing different stuff, I think, in that portion than it was in some of the other verses, which kept it fresh and different and not just like a cut and paste from one section to the other. I really appreciate that. I really liked this kind of blues chain gang. I went on down the road, he went on down the road. Like, just very, a throwback kind of approach that sounded fabulous, packaged up in this presentation. Yeah, I've got a lot of questions about this. Who's Henry? What's this about? Is there any explanation to the narrative being spun in these very descriptive yet still hard to pin down verses? That's also a very like Nick Cave thing. As verbose as he can be, as verbose as he wants, you still don't know exactly what's happening. I like that. So yeah, let's get back to John and have him do some splaining.
Victor Khayyam, he's back. So you've had to listen to Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. Papa Don't Leave Me, Henry. What do you reckon?
Uh, well, I reckon that my supposition about what I was about to listen to was absolutely correct. There was a lot going on in this one. Classic Nick Cave style of writing in this, where it's super intriguing, and no matter how much detail or he paints a beautiful picture, but you still aren't quite sure what you're looking at, and that's I
Yeah.
think a perfect way to describe his, from the very least, his lyrical approach to songwriting. Musically, there was a lot of really interesting stuff happening in here too. I will discuss both as I jump into my notes. So it opens with this twang and thrum of an acoustic guitar being strummed, and soon Cave's vocals accompany it. He proceeds to spin a narrative like he often does. In the scenario, he describes going on like going out for a walk and feeling the heat hang around his neck as he reminisces on the night he spent with a woman. I assume it was the night before, but he's not really too clear on that. The scream and the moans still ringing in his head of this that occurred on this night. But in classic Cave fashion, there is this morbid connotation that he kind of punctuates this anecdote with. And at first, you're inclined to think he might have, simply been this might have simply been a chance sexual encounter. But of course, he makes it weird and unnerving by mentioning the night was spent amongst her bones. So, he always holds up these kind of lyrical Rorschach test to the listener, where you interpret what you hear, but it's really on you where you go. Although let's not, some of the blame should reside with Mr. Cave. But yeah, go on.
So if you heard somebody, particularly probably from the 70s, saying that, spent the night jumping on her bones or whatever, you just think that's shagging. But with Mr. Cave, it's more than likely that he is just playing with, literally her bones. So yeah, it is half on him, half on you. Yeah.
Yeah. Which may or may not have happened subsequent to him actually having sex, which makes it all that much weird, because it's like sex and then some dissection, and you're like, and at the same time, you're like, God damn, this is really interesting. It's some of his shit is like the auditory version of watching a train wreck. Like, you don't want to see it, but you have to watch. And you don't want to listen, but you have to.
Just to say again, sorry to interrupt, but this first verse to the beginning, which is almost like the sort of introduction, is just a wonderful exposition. And we've not said this before, but this could be a minute. It's not even a short story; it's a paragraph. But this could be the treatment of the film quite easily.
Yeah,
it's just,
absolutely.
And all the stuff in it, just in this one sort of verse, is just amazing. But yeah, sorry, carry on.
No, you're fine. And here's what's interesting, because there's a fork in the road in this verse, and he goes from, this sort of reflective thought, where he's describing an experience that had happened, to describing what is happening in real time. And in this case, it's the sight of the buzzard-like reverend standing outside the mission house, shrieking and flapping about what happens after we're dead, which I thought was terrific. I mean, I'm imagining this bird-like older man, outside shouting at the sinners who pass, and it's very interesting and vivid. And he's doing a great job of painting a picture with just letters strewn together to make words, strewn together to make sentences, and here we are. It's really great. This leads to the narrate. This, forgive me, leads the narrator to think of his friend, who had quite a gruesome ending. And I believe you've alluded to these lyrics recently in an intro. It's hard to shake them. Once you hear them, they, especially when they're his lyrics, they stick with you. Um, so this friend, having been offed in some mafia-like execution where he was rolled up in linoleum and shot in the neck, left to bleed out from the neck, and there is this excellent, unsettling imagery used to describe the visage of his friend's corpse. The bit about, and you, this is the part I latched onto, when you hear this once, and it's going to stick with you for a while. And I heard it from you a few weeks ago, but the bloody the bit about the bloody halo that formed like a thought bubble circling his head is just such a vivid description. You know, as you and I are both fans of comics, we've seen the thought and word bubble plenty of times, and you can imagine it, you know, creating this pool of all crimson by the head of his poor friend Michel, I think was his name. Also, the violin, you know, continues to grow and niggle away, adding like bits of tension beneath this musical surface. And as the sound is and the feeling is growing, so does Cave's vocal fervor. Um, at this point, he's bellowing at the skies about the insistence of the rain, and as it begins to pour down on him to the point where, in his words, it washed me all away. He delivers that bit in this sort of descending style. It's a choppy descending. It's an excellent way to usher in the next part of the song, which is what this does throughout. And in comes the chorus. He sings the titular line to open up the chorus as the acoustic chops away at the chords and the drums carry the rhythm. And he then delivers the next bit of the chorus singing, "Well, the road is long and the road is hard, and many fall by the side." And when he extends the word side, the violin stretched out a bit in such a way that really complements and almost parrots Cave's vocal delivery of that word. Sounded really great. Also, there's some great group vocals in this bit, and while not a mirror image of Chain Gang vocals, there is some inspiration there in how this is delivered. It sounds very almost blues Chain Gang, you know, like the inmates in the South doing hard labor, and one starts up a song and the other echoes the sentiments of the line, and there's this call and responsey kind of thing going on. Loved that. That was great. The chorus then wraps up using a similar technique as the verse, in that Cave and company hit that descending bit as he sings, "So there ain't no need to cry." The next bit, which sounds like a post-chorus little stanza, is introduced, and we are treated to more of the group vocals that appear as a response to Cave's delivery. Cave sings, "I went on down the road," to which the group responds, "He went on down the road." And I got to say, by like the second time this happens, I'm sitting there mouthing it as I'm reacting to it, because it's just, it pulls you in. It's very infectious in that regard. Uh, so this only kind of furthers and further enhances that reminder of the Chain Gang style of vocal delivery. The next verse begins, and clearly we have transitioned from day to night in this portion, as rather than being in the sweltering heat of the sun, our main character is now observing the moon in its seemingly exhausted state. I think he describes it. The visage appears to conjure in him the recollection of a now deceased woman who had bleached and hungry eyes. And bleached eyes is an interesting descriptor. I don't know exactly what he's going for, but I always think of, like, if I'm thinking of bleached, I'm thinking of like milky eye, which is like, you know, cataracts or a blindness that's set in. So it's an interesting. He's very he uses very interesting ways to describe sometimes really simple things, but he uses these words that make it sound all that much more, I don't know, important. It has added heft to it, but the way he describes these things. So yeah, he also says that her hair was like curtains falling open with laughter and closing with lies. Excellent line. Again, some really interestingly descriptive lyrics by your man here. This time around, in the verse, the violin is providing more of a punctuating accent at the end of each line, rather than creating this roiling, antagonizing sound beneath the surface as it had in the previous verse. And I really enjoyed the subtle variance in how it's deployed here compared to the initial verse. Keeps that, we've said this a million times, but it keeps things fresh, creates less of this cut and paste kind of approach to the verse. So yeah, I'm all here for it. He dismounts the verse in that same sort of descending fashion as he sings of the tears of today being washed away by the tears of tomorrow. That's kind of a seemingly like fatalist approach. Like, oh my, if you're going to cry today, you're going to cry tomorrow. It's this endless cycle of depression or sorrow or, just living in shitty circumstances. We get treated to another chorus and stanza of the that post-chorusy bit before we enter this interesting portion that is also punctuated by that sort of paced violin notation. In my mind, it starts to take on the actual representation of his feet moving as he's walking through this town because they hit like footsteps. So yeah, I thought that was really cool. If that's what his intent was, it landed perfectly. So this then transitions into some interesting bit of keys and Cave kind of humming or vocalizing along with it before he starts to deliver the third verse, which is wrought with all these little interesting, disconcerting sound bits. And again, a further evolution in the sound of the verse in the song, where it's changed from one more subtle, a little subtly, to two, and now very obviously changed the musical approach in verse three. And I just admire that they're willing to like create all this variation from verse to verse. So hats off to them. This narrative or the narrative of this verse is unsettling, as it would appear the main character has made his way into a particularly seedy brothel riddled with mostly women. I say mostly because up pops a character later that you didn't see coming. I know I did. Uh, uh, with these women with ill intent and likely repute. And let's just say that as the verse unfolds, it sounds more and more like a regrettable decision to have entered such an establishment. And I believe I said, upon the part where a dick got slapped on his cheek, and I don't know which cheek he's referring to, I would have wanted my money back. I'd have been like, this is not what I had in mind, not one bit. So we then get another chorus, post-chorus stanza, and verse. This verse seems to be centered around what a wet and rainy hellhole it is, where he has taken up residency, equipped with lynch mobs, death squads, and babies being born without brains. Yeah, that's sounds awful. There's also this line about sticking your arm in a hole and coming out with shit all the way to the bone. Like, God, dude, start looking around for other places to live. So next comes the chorus, an extended bit of post-chorus, and plenty of that awesome group vocal action that I mentioned earlier and having loved so much before Cave signs off with an extra choppy "went on down that road" as the song comes to an end. So yeah, a lot to take in, a lot to think about. Really hard to piece together what it is he's talking about outside of just being in a really awful place littered with awful people who are probably products of, their environment. Let's be honest here. Yeah, I don't know outside of what I just described, I don't know the grand scheme of what he was trying to convey here. Other than it sounds like an area everyone should avoid and it should probably just be blown from the map. But yeah, I enjoyed the shit out of this. Another, it to me at this point we've done enough where it's like I don't know to what degree I like one more than the other. They're all kind of just fucking really good Nick Cave song. So, yeah, tell me more about this one and where it falls on the timeline.
Okay, so we've done a number of Nick Cave songs, as you said. Create a playlist, which this will be added to. I'll put the link in below. So you can go and check out previous episodes. We talk more about the evolution of the band, etc. Blah blah blah. We'll concentrate just on this song and the album from whence it was born. So this is the opening track from Henry's Dream, the seventh studio album by Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, released in 1992. It was the first album to feature some long-standing members, so Martin P. Casey, bass, guitar, and Conway Savage, I always enjoy his name, piano, organ, and backing vocals. So they joined for this album. The album title is a reference to The Dream Songs, 1969, which is a long poem by John Berryman. So just to reiterate the personnel for this outage, Nick Cave, this is for the album, not just the track. Nick Cave, vocals, piano, organ, harmonica. Mick Harvey, rhythm guitar, piano, organ, vibraphone, drums, percussion, backing vocals. Blixa Bargels, guitar, backing vocals. Martin P. Casey, bass, backing vocals. Conway Savage, piano, Rhodes piano, backing vocals. Thomas Wilder, drums, congas, backing vocals. And guest musicians, Dennis Karmazin, cello, Bruce Dukoff, violin, and Barbara Porter, violin. So your man, Mr. Ellis, hadn't joined at this point, crazy dude with the violin.
Mm-hmm.
He comes later. This album was put together, and Nick Cave himself was quite unhappy with the production. It was by a chap called David Briggs. Briggs made his name with Neil Young records, or probably most of them. And he preferred a live in the studio method, which he had used with Neil Young. And this led to Cave and Mick Harvey having to remix the album and then ultimately sort of almost do the album, or bits of it again, in the Live Seeds recordings, which was a year later, as Cave wanted the songs done justice. Cave later said, he was a fucking nightmare, that guy. I know he's dead now and all, but fuck, man. I put a lot of energy into the writing of that record, and then for each day to see it drift away, it was a horrible, horrible experience. Tony Cohen, who was the engineer for the remix, said Briggs pushed them to play better take after take. The performance was everything. But when it came to the mix, Briggs left all the faders in one spot. He didn't touch it. So you can understand why. Just a side note, I had a quick look. I think Briggs died about 3 or 4 years later of lung cancer. Unfortunate. But yeah, I mean, after the gold rush, all that sort of stuff he did with Neil Young. So experiment there and didn't quite work for Nick Cave anyway. Of the song you just listened to, Papa Won't Leave You, Henry, Cave said in 2005, I like that song a lot. That was another one written in Brazil. Well, that later. It's this sprawling lyrical thing. That song was composed over a long period of time and something that I would sing to my little son Luke. It was kind of a nasty, fucked up lullaby.
To say the least.
Yeah. So AllMusic has said that the album showed the band in fierce and fine fettle once more, and described Cave's lyrics as a series of striking, compelling lyrics, again exploring love, lust, and death. Adding the songs that showcase the Seeds' peerless abilities at fusing older styles with noisy aggression and tension. Drowned in Sound called the album a masterclass in narrative songwriting and referred to the songs as favela punk, adding that the album's atmospheric centerpiece conveys the mystery of faith and the weirdness of folk traditions rather than just rattling out as a pretty tune. Village Voice critic Robert Kreisgau. Now, this is a theme which I've never paid any attention to this guy before, but he really is a little bitch. He wrote that if this is your idea of great writing, you may be ripe for his cult. Otherwise, forget it. The voice alone definitely won't do the trick. Henry's Dream was included in a number of Album of the Year lists, particularly in the United Kingdom, where it reached number 29 in the album charts. So, yeah, pretty much everyone else thought it was great. Anyway, right, so the lyrics, which you got a lot of, I shall go through the whole sorted affair.
Please.
And the delivery is fantastic as well. I went out walking the other day, just to say, actually, on the violin throughout the song, I almost picture it like the accompanying music to a silent film. You know, it's like that tremulous there, and then as you
Yeah,
say,
yeah,
the stepping, it does all that. It's all like another character almost within the song. Brilliant.
it
I went out
is.
walking the other day. The heat hung wet around my neck. My head it rung with screams and groans from the night I spent amongst her bones. I passed beside the mission house where that mad old buzzard, the Reverend, shrieked and flapped about life after you're dead. Well, I thought about my friend Michelle, how they rolled him in linoleum and shot him in the neck. A bloody halo like a thick bubble circling his head. And I
Mm.
bellowed at the firmament. Looked like the rains are here to stay. And the rain pissed down upon me and washed me all away, saying, Papa won't leave you, Henry. Papa won't leave you, boy. Papa won't leave you, Henry. Papa won't leave you, boy. Well, the road is long, the road is hard, and many fall by the side. But Papa won't leave you, Henry, so there ain't no need to cry. And I went on down the road. He went on down the road. Oh, yeah, I went on down the road. He went on down the road. Well, the moon, it looked exhausted, like something you should pity. Spent an age spotted above the sizzling wires of the city. Well, it reminded me of her face and her bleached and hungry eyes. Her hair was like a curtain, falling open with the laughter and closing with the lies. And
Mm.
the ghost of her still lingers on, though she's passed through me and is gone. Well, the slum dogs, they are barking. The rain children on the streets. And the tears that we will weep today will all be washed away, but the tears that we will weep again tomorrow. Papa won't leave you, Henry. Papa won't leave you, boy. Papa won't leave you, Henry. Papa won't leave you, boy. For the road is long, the road is hard, and many fall by the side. But Papa won't leave you, Henry, so there's no need to cry. And I went on down the road. He went on down the road. I went down the road. Yeah, he went on down the road. And I came upon a little house upon a hill. And I entered through, and the curtain hissed into the house with its blood-red boughs, where wet-lipped women with greasy fists crawled the ceilings and the walls. They filled me full of drink, and they led me round the rooms, naked and cold and grinning, until everything went black and I came down spinning. I awoke so drunk and full of rage that I could hardly speak. A fag in a whalebone corset draping his dick across my cheek. And it's into the shame and it's into a guilt and it's into the fucking fray. And the walls ran red around me. I wore arterial spray. Say, Papa, don't leave you, Henry, Papa, leave you, boy, Papa, leave you, Henry, Papa, boy. Well, the night is dark and the night is deep and its jaws are open wide. But Papa won't leave you, Henry, so there ain't no need to cry. So I went on down the road, he went on down the road. Oh, yeah, I went down the road, he went on down the road. Yeah, whoa, 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 whoa. It's the rainy season where I'm living. Death comes leaping out of every doorway, wasting you for money, for your clothes, and for your nothing. Entire towns being washed away, favelas exploding on inflammable spillways, and the lynch mobs, death squads, babies being born without brains, the mad heat and the relentless rains. Well, if you stick your arm into that hole, it comes out sheared off to the bone. And with her kisses bubbling on my lips, I swiped the rain and nearly missed. And I went on down the road. He went on down that road. Papa won't leave you, Henry, Papa won't leave you, boy. Papa won't leave you, Henry, Papa won't leave you, boy. Well, the road is long, the road is hard, and many fall by the side. But Papa won't leave you, Henry, so there ain't no need to cry. So I went down the road, he went down the road. Oh, yeah, I went down the road, he went down the road. Bent beneath my heavy load, under his heavy load. Yeah, I went down the road. Yeah, he went down the road. Whoa, 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 whoa. And I went on down that road. So, yeah, just a couple of notes. There's a lot to get into there.
If you don't
So
say.
first of all, that lyric that you pointed out about in the brothel with the getting slapped on the cheek, it has sparked some controversy,
I can
possibly
understand.
demeaning or homophobic, or it may even be more complex than that, as in a multi-viewpoint narration where it's another person, including a gay character, interacting with the Simpson Gigolo. Who knows? But Cave remains proud of this song, saying, some songs are divinely constituted organisms that have their own integrity. As flawed as they may be, the souls of the songs must be protected at all costs. There's all sorts of preaching. They must be allowed to exist in all their abhorrent horror, unmolested by these strident advocates of the innocuous, even if just as some indication that the world has moved towards a better, fairer, and more sensitive place. Amen. He has said that some of the album's inspiration came to him from his time in Brazil. Cave moved to Sao Paulo in 1990, where he met and married his first wife, Brazilian journalist Viviane Carneiro. She gave birth to their son, the aforementioned Luke, in 1991. This was also recorded in 92. Cave and Carneiro were married for 6 years and divorced in 1996. He specifically mentioned the street beggars that he saw in his time in Brazil, saying they get their acoustic guitars with one or two strings and bang away, make a racket that made no sense whatsoever. It was very violent and seemed to come straight out of the heart, very unmusical. So, of course, he loved it. So, yeah, and within this song, you know, the favelas, the Brazilian slums are mentioned, and the lyrics exaggerate some of the bits of Brazil, like the weather, which is a major theme of this song, is the rain, which is apparently capable of washing away not only your sins, but whole towns in his imagination. And medicine or lack of it, and the general state of chaos, lawlessness, and poverty, which he must have seen around on the streets. So this is almost like I think it's a little sort of trawl through the dark night time of a Brazilian city, and all the sort of bits you can see in between. But it's really interesting stuff, which you can, as you say, from his writing, it is vivid and yet slightly obtuse at the same time.
It's a balance between those two things, which is all that much more interesting when you consider they're antithetical to one another, those two concepts. This idea of like over description without any pinned down meaning or characters or, you know, arches and plot. It's kind of void of that, and yet all these really rich descriptive, you know, words are used. It's a lot of fun to just listen and read them.
Yeah, exactly. And so, you know, you get this sort of semi-gothic narrative.
Yeah.
I can't help but envisage this in black and white. I don't know why, but I just do. Even though it describes the blood and the red and all that sort of stuff,
Yeah.
it's, you know, it's a black and white, almost Victorian in the way, you know, you can see the people dressed and everything. That's my sort of, you know, imagination. But it's a great sort of rollicking song as well. And the style, as you say, I'd never thought of the chain gang sort of thing, but it's absolutely spot on. It does fit sort of call and response and that sort of, again, drinking hall sort of singing along type thing as well. The chain gang's sort of more sort of dirty and painful, which probably suits it better.
Yeah. There you go.
So, yeah, this is a great album. Really is. This is probably my favorite though. It's a cracker. There's some really good stuff on here as well. But yeah, this is a great song as well, and just so rich in terms of its narration and its imagery. That and very immediate in terms of you can enjoy it straight away, and almost, as you say, almost sing along because you know what's coming in some of the chorus and post-chorus bits as well. So I thought it'd be a good one to add to our Nick Cave collective.
Absolutely. And I would also say that the juxtaposition of the come on in, sing along, it's easy to follow choruses with these, like, sometimes, remember when we did recently the Danielle Lupi and Danger Mouse, and you had kind of alluded to at times Jack White seems to be fitting one or two extra words into there's some of that going on here because that's how verbose he's being and how descriptive he's being. So to get this like simple, easy to follow chorus that invites you along in, juxtaposed with this like you're hanging on every word and it's just a lot to unpack verses, is an interesting dynamic as well. And I thought that made it really cool too.
Just to say, there's been a few theories on who is who within the song. The general consensus tends to be that the narrator is Henry. And he's kind of recounting this person saying, Papa won't leave you, Henry. But clearly, because he's recounted it, he has left. He's saying, I won't leave, but he has.
Shit that he's left with, you know what I mean? You were supposed to help me from this. You were supposed to keep me from this. And here I am. I can't avoid it. And where the fuck are you? You know,
Still, could be worse. You could be Michelle.
True. You're right.
Good. Okay, I will sign off here and wrap things up. Thanks for listening to us, Andy. Folks out there, Tell us what you think. If you like this, please do slap your meaty paw down on the like button and let us know. And drop some comments. We'd love to hear from you. What do you think of this song, this album? I think it's a really, really strong one within the canon. But yeah, love to hear what your thoughts. If you haven't subscribed already, please do. It may be the only thing that saves you from a wet and windy night on the main streets of Brazil. Who knows? But yeah, we really appreciate everybody who does support the channel. That being said, thanks so much for watching, and we'll see all of you in the next episode of the Audiophiles.
See you later, guys.